Hello and welcome to the United Devil channel with me, JB. So, first time ever that I'm doing a double show in one day, which is pretty cool. Apologies for those who watched the morning show thanks to technical issues. Kind of had to abruptly end the stream, but as per usual, the chat for this channel is absolutely fantastic, and I love the questions. What we try to do here really is as many as your crazy ideas as you possibly can. We can debate out the transfers. You know, I'm happy to go over the same thing purely at the moment because there is not a lot of things happening. As long as we all do need to prefix this, as long as we are all respectful of each other's opinions, I'm more than happy for you to come and have your say, have your opinions. We may not always agree, but I think that's the beauty of having an opinion. I am pretty staunch in my views, but I'm more than happy to debate and talk about all of our passions, which is our great club. So after today and after the last week, these shows, I would say I needed to get back on here this afternoon, purely because again this morning was quite not a depressive show, but not a lot to report this morning. So I thought I would come on with something more positive this afternoon, and I've been trying to find these positivity pieces to come on and talk about them. So as the thumbnail says there, so RIOS of Palmeiras, according to, and the sources are the Manchester Evening News, Palmeiras Online, and Give Me Sport. So according to all these together, United are now in talks with RIOS, which I think is a really positive thing. Now, I don't want to put my negative spin on this just yet. I just kind of want to bask in this sort of what I think we definitely should be doing is definitely should be going after this player. Now, I'd love to know if you've seen this player at all. I watched little of the World Club Cup. I did see some of the games that he was in on purpose, and I think he looks like an all-action, combative midfielder who would definitely be fantastic for us. So what I'd love to know in the chat is if you've seen him play, what you think of this player, and you think this is somebody that we should go through. So this morning's show, one of the bits on the thumbnail, which I think this actually goes quite well with, is that I think we're going to go for transfers that are cheap. But RIOS, I actually think he fits amazingly into this 25 to 26 million pounds. I think is an absolute steal. I guess the only thing to know, and I'm trying to keep this a positive show right now because it's just reporting on the news, is that it does fit into, I think, what we're trying to do for this club. Not that I agree with it, and I'd like to know your stance on this. I don't agree that we should be going cheap, but these are the sorts of players, and I think that from what I've seen, and be interested to know your views on this, is that the Brazilian league, as much as people can turn up their nose at the Brazilian league, I think there are a lot of players right now coming out of that league that look fantastic. So what I think the Brazilian league has, I think that, and I've said this, and this is no disrespect to other leagues. Other leagues do have, top 2, top 3 teams that could easily compete in the Premier League. However, I do think the Premier League, in terms of an average team, other than us right now, do have, I think it does have the average best league in the world, but it doesn't mean to say that other leagues couldn't bring in their strengths. I just think that with other leagues like the Portuguese league, the Italian league, the Spanish league, for example, not that they are bad leagues as such, I just think the average level, on the basis that we beat a couple of Spanish teams now, we are awful. So I think the Brazilian league, what it does really well is it has the physicality. Now, when you play in that sort of humidity and that sort of heat, and you play in a league where the the atmosphere wise, if you've ever watched an Argentinian game, a Brazilian game, they are passionate and the place is buzzes and rocks. And these players are used to producing that on the pitch. They're passionate themselves. And when they play for a team, they are heart and soul into that team, the heart and soul into the team, the ethos of the team, the fans. They tend to love the fans. So when you put all that combined with players who are, they get up and down that pitch. So physicality, I think they're perfect. So Rios, I think, absolutely suits that mold. As a defensive kind of midfielder, I think he'd be I think he would be a competitive. I can't even bloody say the word. Combative. Sorry, combative. Easy for me to say. A combative, all-action midfielder, which at 25, I think would be up and down that pitch. Maybe he will have to kind of quell and kind of get used to our league in terms of, it stays quite fast paced, but I could see him if he come to us having a kind of yellow and red cards, because as we know, VAR in this country obviously love to give our players a red card. So absolutely fantastic midfielder. Manchester Evening News, Palmeiras Online, Gimme Sports. So these are the ones that are promoting this and saying that we are now in talks with you. So I'm absolutely on board with this. I'd love to know in the chat how you feel about this. Would you like this player? Do you think it's a good deal at 25 million? Now on to the caveat. And I don't want to, and I'm determined to keep this a positive show, because most of my shows right now are a negative spin. So a couple of caveats to this. So before this, Roma are heavily involved. So I think we've probably joined this race. If we have joined this race and we are talking to him, I think United, have joined this race. I think Roma probably at the moment are probably just a little bit ahead, purely because I think they've done a lot of the groundwork for this player. But I think potentially we have looked and gone, well, actually, we do need some players in. We are stacked in the midfield, as we've said. This morning, we've got Ugarte, Mainu, Collier, Fernandez, Mainu. We do have 4 or 5 players in that kind of midfield. Now, to consider, I think if we'd have had European football, then potentially this would have been a different story. But the fact that our games week in, week out are pretty much going to be Premier League games. So we kind of need to lose one of those. Now, Casemiro, for me, I'd love to offload him. I think that as much as he he improved at the end of last year. He on the back of at least a year. I think time has caught up with him. As much as he's turned up for pre-season really, really lean, and I think that's the kind of word on the street now is our players have come back lean, mean, fighting machines, even though we finished 15th in the league. But Rios, I think, would definitely add something. And I don't think that in terms of a wage, I don't think he would be particularly costly. So I think for this deal to happen, I do think that we are inquiring about him. I do think we like this player. I think that's obvious. I think Roma are probably slightly ahead. And I do think we need to get rid of, or at least loan a midfielder out. And Casemiro, I think, would be probably the one. Mainu, interesting about him is that he's due to sign a new contract, and I don't think he signed the contract yet. So I don't know whether they are keeping that contract back, because as they always do, they love to spin a contract. So Mainu will be like a brand new signing if he signs the contract, or is there something around that we don't quite know yet, where he's not going to sign a contract and he may be the sacrificial player because Casemiro won't go, and unless Saudi come in and obviously offer him a wage, I don't think he will go. So I do think within the team we do actually need a space for Rios to go, but I'd be happy to sign him and almost freeze a player out, hoping that they'll go in the next window. So I'd love to know what you think about this play. If you think we should go for this player, if you think that he will add something to the midfield, is definitely something I think that we should do. I think it's a must. I think for the transfer policy that we currently have, the policy was, or the statement was, that we've been planning this window since April and we know our targets. I'm going to call foul on that. There are a few choice words that I could use on that, but it is only 11 minutes past 3, and I don't want to start off my day, well, the afternoon on that one. So let's hope that United can do something in this window, because right now it is not looking good. Onana, I think again, this morning we briefly spoke about Onana and the absolute travesty that he is as a keeper. He's injured now for 8 weeks. Now, any possibility, I think, depending on how serious the injury is, by all accounts, is probably not as serious as people first thought. I, for one, when I heard this news, I categorically will say this: I don't want to see any player get injured. I don't want to see, any player, have any ill feeling towards them. But sometimes when a player sustains an injury for a length of time, it does give other people opportunities to come into the team. Now, as much as Onana isn't my guy, I don't think he's particularly good, but the fact that he's injured, or I saw that he was injured for 8 weeks, I thought, fantastic. This is an opportunity now for us to get a new keeper, maybe a new number 2, maybe do something in the market. Now, originally for the last 2 weeks, I've not really heard anything or read anything or seen it. The only thing I have seen really in terms of Onana is the fact he doesn't want to go. He's got a contract here. I think he's comfortable here. I think he doesn't, he's playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world, even though he is contributing to us being not very good on the pitch, and is the reason why pretty much we got knocked out the Champions League the year before last, is the reason why we lost a load of games this year. Not all of his fault. Can't lay the blame on him, but you can lay goals at Onana. Now, according to Goal Brazil and Thiago Fernandez, John Victor is basically we're looking at him. So he plays for Botafogo. Hey, Bobby. Hello again. I thought I would come back on with some positive stories today, because I don't really do a positive show right now, because there's nothing positive to talk about. So I just thought I would talk about some of the things that people have started to talk about. I think we've been talking about Rios for a long time, but there are reports now from the Manchester Evening News. As much, whatever your thoughts are on that, there is something, and they're getting their information from Palmeiras Online. So Rios, I do think we are starting to look at that, because we need to do something, and that would fit in, I think, to this Ineos plan since April, is basically to do things on the cheap. 26 million, I think it's I wouldn't even think about it. It's something that I think we should just do, and I'm hoping that there is a lot more to that. John Victor. So positivity, and I hate to be positive around other people's misfortune. So Onana, I think, as we spoke about this morning, injury, it's never nice, and I wish him well. I do wish him a recovery because it's not nice to be injured, but that presents an opportunity for others within the team. And Onana, we all know that he's basically become a meme and a joke. So John Victor. So according to Goal Brazil, Thiago Fernandez, that we have inquired about John Victor. Now, the best thing about him, and I think he was, I liked him. I've now seen a couple of games. I think that as a number 2, he's about that right age. He reminds me of, and because I'm older now, my brain just goes all of the time. He reminds me of it's gonna bug the hell out of me now. I'm gonna have to look it up. The Argentinian goalkeeper that we had, and it's gonna bug me now. I'm gonna have to look it up because my old brain. Romero. Honestly, as you get older, right, your brain goes, right. At times now, I walk into a room and I've forgotten why I've walked into that room. It's just ridiculous. That's the price you pay for being older. Being mature, right? Romero, he reminds me of that type of a keeper who, he was a good keeper, but a keeper who is going to be a safe pair of hands. I think he could be a number 1. I think he could be our number 1 for a little while. We could be a number 1 whilst we are searching for a keeper for next season. And I think he would be stable in goal. Onana, I think he would oust him completely and potentially force his move out of this club. Now, one of the best things, and I can be really positive about this as well, is that his price would be 5.9 million. I just want to let that sink in and let that be known out there, is that there's a keeper of the quality of John Victor. Whether you think, again, I'd be interested to know what you think of him in the chat. But John Victor for 5.9 million. Now, if we can't afford that, again, I wouldn't even think, but I'd be jumping all over this. This has Ineos all over this. This is an Ineos type of, cheap deal. For 5.9 for a new number 2, I think he could be the number 1 until next season. Would you rather Onana come back in goal, which he's basically going to cost us games, even if Rubin was able to work some magic on this team and get it playing, and there were like some tight games, and we could potentially draw or win. Onana is going to have a mistake in him. We're going to lose a tight game or a game that we should win that we will draw because Onana is going to make a mistake. Now, should we remove that from the team? I think if we removed Onana from the team, what you would see is a more confident back 4, back 5 even. I think you would see a lot more accomplishment from that back 3, really, isn't it? I think they would be more confident. I think Victor would, in the short term. I think he would, as long as he doesn't make a mistake, because as we all know, Temigason, hello. I liked Osman in Burmo, Emi Martinez, Rios, Fermin, Lopez, Nelson, Souza, Moyes keen to come to A's better for next season. We can come to those points, and I'm going to try and put a positive spin on this show because I think it's really important that for my mental health and for my sanity, I think we need some positivity around these shows, and we'll definitely come back to that because I think you've made some good points there. John Victor, for 5.9 million is something that I think I would definitely do. I don't think you could get a worse goalkeeper for 5.9, and even if he was, at least you've only paid 5.9 million. And worst case scenario, Onana, put him back in goal. So I think these are two deals that I think fit into the Ineos mantra: pinching a penny, keeping everything cheap. So the positivity on that is, I think that we should definitely look at these two players. I'd be gutted if we didn't do these deals. I think they'll be easy to do. I think RIOS, will be transformative. I think he pushes Ugarte out of the team. Ugarte, as much as I like him, I think RIOS pushes him out of the team. And in fact, you could probably, depending on injuries and depending on what we want to do, Fernandez, he pushes him out of the team. So you could have a middle two of RIOS and Ugarte. And I think that is a midfield combativeness for like the Premier League. So I think that there is I'm hoping, and I'm going to be positive on this, that we're going to hear some news on that today. So in Burmo, I'm not going to waste time on that. No news on that. I'm hoping that, and I've been saying this since last week, that I think he's going to get announced with a kit on Wednesday. Just before Wednesday, it might get. I don't think we're going to get sort of like. I don't think we're going to get anything out of the club in the interim on this. I think it's just going to drop. I don't think anybody is going to necessarily get like the kind of preemptive, like, I think he's just going to drop. I think Ornstein will probably get it. I think Romano will get it, and it'll just drop. I think it'll just drop like a bomb, like tonight, tomorrow. And because he's already in the States, in LA, I'm pretty adamant. I'm going to be positive and say that I think we're going to get this deal done. I think we've agreed it. I think we are waiting, which is terrifying in some respects, that we are waiting for this deal to align with a kit launch, but I will take it, absolutely take it. So let's go back to the comments. So we've got, yes, I liked Osman and Burmo, Emi Martinez, RIOS, Fermin, Lopez, Nelson, Moise Keane. So I think those are all really interesting names. Osman, obviously, that one's gone. And actually, you've led me right onto the other thing I was going to talk about, or get your opinions on. So Osman, that's gone. So we've missed that on. I think we've missed that on choice A, B, C, probably D. And Osman is going to go to Turkey. So the Galatasaray president has basically come out last week and basically say, we're not looking at any more. We're not looking at anyone else. They've basically been working on this now for a couple of months, weeks. They've basically sort of gone to the bank. They're basically getting vouchers. They're looking down the back of the settee, looking down the back of the couch. They're asking mates for some money, and so they're basically doing everything that they possibly can to get this deal done. I think one of the major things, I think, for Osman, why I don't think he was ever gonna really come, was because of his wages. Now, it is his right to ask for whatever wage that he wants. I think he wanted net about 350 net. I think something along those lines. When tax in here, you'd probably need to be earning the best part of 480,000 before you clear anywhere near that for net. So I just don't, put in a player on like 500,000. I'm not going to give Ineos or the Glazers any praise here, but I do think that these are the deals that we kind of need to avoid. I think I wouldn't be comfortable. I think if you were guaranteed, and I think the striker position is a slightly different position, as we know with Højlund. is that if you can get somebody who scores you 25 goals, you are going to put yourself up there, and you are going to, you are basically going to pretty much get that sort of top four, top six. And I think I think is he worth that if he scores those goals? Yes. But again, we've taken a punt on these plays before, and they've not always worked out. But irrespective of that, Osimhen is going to go to Turkey, and I think that's going to be done very, very soon. In Burma, we've just talked about. I think we're going to go. I'm convinced Wednesday in line with the kit, and that's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to put any negativity on that. I'm going to be really positive, and I'm going to say Wednesday. He's going to be announced, going to be wearing that purple shirt. I think he's going to be in the States. He's going to have his arms around the manager, and they're going to be just like, this is the player that we've chased. So that's what I've got in my head, and I'm going to be the optimist on this one. Emi Martinez, Aston Villa, I think, need to get rid of it. Just need to get rid of him. Martinez, I'd love him. I think he's got the personality. I think he's got the presence. I think he's got the aura of a United keeper. And I think he would be here for a good couple of years. I think you could get that price down towards the end of the window. I think Villa need him gone. I think Villa want him gone. Not because he's particularly bad, but I think he's fallen out with Emery, and Aston Villa, I think, really need to get rid of that player. I think it's a shame. I think Villa are a really good club. I do think they need to balance their PSR. They might have done that now, but I think they're a really good club. Emery's done extremely well there. I think he, what he's done there, he's worked some amazing things. But there's an opportunity there to get that keeper, and I think that the strategy to go back to that is going to be cheap. So I think that we're gonna avoid that. Lopez and the other players in the list, I don't think that United are that smart. I think that we've now got a scattergun approach, which I think has been typical of us, and I just can't believe a CEO would come out with a statement that we've been planning this since April, and they basically look like an absolute bunch of fools. And it's quite clear that they maybe had a plan of a couple of players. I think that they basically just completely dropped the ball on this, and there's nothing now, I don't think, that they can do to retrieve this window. Moise Kean at the very end is something that I wanted to get into and talk about the striker situation. So, Gyökeres has gone or going to go to Arsenal. This hurts me. I think Arsenal have done, they used to be the banter club, but let me tell you something, they are getting their stuff done. They are responding to Liverpool, to the Chelseas of this world, and I think they have got an absolute amazing striker there. There is no. I'm not going to sit here and go. He is a fantastic striker. I think that they've done a great job to get him in. I think he's going to score them lots of goals. Maybe he'll take 1 or 2 games to get back into Premier League. I know he's played in the Championship, but again, I think he's a physical beast. I think he's quick. I just think he's going to score tons of goals, and I think that he's going to get Arsenal. He could be the missing piece to the puzzle, and I think Arsenal have got a really amazing striker there. Bobby says, I hope he flops. I get that as well. I do. I like this player, and if we were anywhere near Arsenal, Danny B in the chat, how we doing, buddy? Big up yourself, mate. I hope you are doing really well today. If we were anywhere near Arsenal, then I might have that opinion and be just like, I hope he flops, because it would mean that we're close to the to the top 4, top 5. So if he flops, and it just means that, we've got a chance. But I think that we are 15th right now. We've improved by a player, but I think we've not improved because we've lost a bunch of players. And I'm not saying that those players didn't need to go, but we've not replaced them. Striker situation. So I think this is the part that I wanted to talk about, really. And we've had Moise Kean in there as a name, right? So if we're going to look at the strikers who are left, who would you want to get as a striker? So if our options were Højlund stays, is our main striker with a Xerxes and an Obi. So if that was our front three, because we're being cheap. Now, if that is our front three, then I think the writing is on the wall. Do we keep that front three? Do you think that could get us through the year? I personally don't. So what other targets in terms of strikers I think I think from what I've heard and seen, Mateta, even though he's been linked to Liverpool. Watkins, I think, is, again, there's a player from Villa that needs to go. He's fallen out with the manager. And as much as Villa want a really good price for him, I think, sadly, I think towards the end of the window, I think they will lower that price because he needs to go. And I think the world and his wife kind of knows that. Moise Kean, I think, is a name. Vlahovic. Who else? I mean, I other than that. So Danny B says, I wouldn't be panic buying with a huge fee. I would take a cheap gamble. That's right. That's right. You mentioned that striker from Genk, Aro Kader. I think that's how you say it. And that actually was the play I was just thinking about, because I know you mentioned him on that show. And I agree with you on that. I don't think we should be panic buying. I think the worst thing that we can do is panic buy. We've panic bought before, and it doesn't work. And what we do is also, to come back to that point, I'd much prefer to sign a player like that for a lower fee than what we do is we panic buy and then we get in a striker that will just do. So, a likes of a Falcao, which, I think when we signed him, he was off the back of that injury, and he probably wasn't at his best. Zlatan, to be fair, worked out really well. I liked him as a player. Zlatan was he's perfect. Yeah, I absolutely, just thought that he was immense. And then we had Igalo, which, I mean, Igalo, when he played for Watford, was an absolute beast. I thought he was a fantastic player. At that point, I think when he was 25, when he's banging in those goals, yeah, but I think we got him right at the end of his career. Edison Cavani, I thought Cavani again. I think he was as a signing. I liked him a lot. It's just, sadly for him, he was never injured, never had a long term, but he was always out with something for like a week or two, or he was out like here and there. But again, he was class. So those Cavani's, those Ibras, if we can get a player like that in, then that's fine. But those are few and far between. So I don't think that we're gonna get those. Calvert-Lewin, I shudder every time I mention that name. Vardy. So I don't think that. So Danny B says better opportunities could come up in the January window, but I think we got Arakader 25 to 30 mil on cheap wages. If he doesn't work out, we can always sell him for around the same fee and a small profit. 100%. That is a sort of signing that I think that we need to do. And I was hoping that Ineos we're going to make that kind of smart sort of other league signing, and that's what that's what the Brightons do. And I'm not saying we need to follow that path, but we do need to start to look at these players. And I think 25 to 30, I think is about right. I think if we go to either end of that scale, and we go to that end where we've got the free like a Vardy, and we've got Wilson, Calvert-Lewin. Those are. I think that's a completely wrong way to look at that. Unless the only way I would be comfortable with those sorts of signings if they were just like a backup. And what I mean by that is, we're talking even behind like an OB, even behind him. So if we were stacked, if we had like strikers options of this Genk player, if we had another sort of signing, maybe Rasmus stayed, but I don't see a way that you could get a younger striker and then have a young striker, OB, and then somebody to support. So I do think we need 3 strikers, because if we get an injury to a striker, then who do we have? So one of my fears, and I don't want to be negative about this, I'd take. So Bobby says I take Vardy, but only as agreed. I would take him as a, maybe not even as an off the bench, but if you need to give somebody a rest, let's just say OB has a bit more experience this year, and even if he's the off the bench one, but Vardy would be like a Carabao Cup sort of striker, like an FA Cup early rounds. If we need to give strikers a sort of rest, you can always play him. So I think a choice out of Vardy, Calvert-Lewin is a bit like asking, would you rather be punched in the face or punched in the nuts? I think it's pretty much that. Do you want to be in pain or in pain, but what's lesser of that? Obviously, a nut punch is worse. So I probably would take a punch to the face, and if that means it's Vardy, then I probably would go for Vardy at a pinch. So I think, as you said there, I agree with that. I think we need a Vardy, but as a not second striker, maybe as a kind of third striker. Xerxes, I do think is going to play a part as a striker, as a makeshift striker. So I think that we would possibly go for a new striker. So the likes of I can't even say his bloody name. The Genk striker, that's what I'm going to call him. Aro Kader. I think that sort of striker would be perfect. This is why I love this chat, because you absolutely come up with these banging names. I think somebody like that, if we sign him, then that's a new Danny B. I think you've come up with that. And I think if we sign him, mate, then I think that's a banger. And that would sort of show in some respects that we are trying to think outside of the box. I do think that if we were looking at him, I think possibly that would be done by now, but who knows? I'd love you guys to suggest as many of these kind of off-the-cuff players, and I'd be interested to see where these players end up. Moise Kean is another one. I think that it's a no for me with Moise Kean. I think that the Italian league suits him really well. I think it's not a faster pace, and he's come to the Premier League before and he's not done particularly well. Doesn't mean he couldn't come back. It doesn't mean he's not matured. Doesn't mean that he's not turned into a better striker. But I think for me, I think there's some players who can't handle that kind of faster pace league. Doesn't mean to say they're bad players. Even some players from in different leagues, like our league, maybe some of our players would struggle in like the Spanish league just because of the type of league that it is. maybe some of the players would struggle in the Italian league because obviously it's more of a tactical league. I think it's more of a physical league. However, as McTominay has shown, that's a name that I've not mentioned for a little while. He's gone there and done well, so he kind of pisses or like over that really for me, doesn't he? I think Moise Kean, I think it'd be an expensive mistake. I think he would be a Rasmus Mark II. I would try and avoid signing from the Italian league. Yeah, agree with you. The only other caveat to that is Vlahovic. So Vlahovic is on a free. Again, it's got the sort of deal that Ineos want to do. Cheap, he was a decent striker initially because he played for Fiorentina. I thought he was a bit like Tony. Going back now a couple of years, Tony, who was quite a tall striker, not particularly quick, but finisher-wise, fantastic. I think Luca Toni, did he play for Bayern Munich as well? But I know he pretty much kind of stayed in the Italian league for quite some time, and he was just a really, really good striker. And I thought Vlahovic was going to sort of be like that, but again, he's had his contract ended. So again, I don't think that's somebody that I'd like to sign. You're right. Italian league wise, yeah, I think that it's a completely different league in terms of play styles, and I think strikers are not necessarily used to that kind of fast pace, constantly counter-attack, attacking, constantly making those runs. Doesn't, as I say, it doesn't mean that the Italian league is bad. I just think it's too different for a striker to come into the league. So I think those are pretty much the sort of options. I just wonder where we're going to go. Mateta, it is a slow league. I think it's a very physical league. I think it's more of a strategic league. I think that's my kind way of saying it. It's boring. Serie A back in the day on a Sunday morning. I don't know how old everybody is on Channel 4. Used to watch the likes of Parma. So Danny B says it takes a drastic way to cut, maybe give him a short-term contract, Vlahovic, but honestly, I don't want him. He could be. Again, I think that Vlahovic is an interesting option. He's got a left foot, but he is injury prone. I think if you could get him on a cut price, here are my circumstances that a Vlahovic, I'd be comfortable with a Vlahovic, is if we got him on a short-term deal, so maybe a year with an extension of a year. Worst case scenario, you've got 2 years, maybe with a extension of a year. That we don't need to give him that +1. You give him a lower wage. I know he was on extortionate pay. I think he was on like 200 grand. I think if you can get that down to like 100 grand, a year or two, as long as he's not injured when he gets signed, then I think as an interesting option. Again, it's like a choice between Vlahovic, Vardy, Calvert-Lewin, those sorts of players. Is that the market now that we are shopping in? He's Erasmus with no pace, in my opinion. I don't think he's got pace because I don't think he's got any legs left. Rasmus, I absolutely love this kid to come good. I would absolutely, if Amarin, I think Amarin wants him gone, to be honest. I just don't think he sees him as his striker. I don't think he thinks that he's the guy, but Rasmus, I think Rasmus, how he is as a player, I think he suits the team. I think his attitude's right I think that he knows what it is to play for this club. I think he wants to play for this club. I think he has that mentality, but he's lacking. I don't know if it's because he was asked to lead the line at 20 years of age. I don't know if he has been infected too much, but I just don't see what Amarin can do, or I don't see how he's going to improve to a degree where he becomes that striker that we need. Hi, Bobby. I hope you are. Hugo Ekitike should be for Newcastle for $86 million move deal for Newcastle United now. I Ekitike. I think the jury's out for me on Ekitike. I think he's a very, very expensive gamble. I think he's a striker that you get if you're a Liverpool. I think he's a striker that you get if you're an Arsenal, if you're a City. He's that striker that you can sign. He's a young guy. He can learn, and that price doesn't seem as high. If you spread that, you could spread that over 5 years, and he could potentially learn. Let's just say he goes to Liverpool, and you likes of Salah, and you got the likes of that team there. He's going to learn so much, and I think that even if he has those kind of okay first year, second year, fine, he's still young. I think to being in a title winning team, I think they could definitely take that gamble, whereas we definitely can't take that gamble. I just don't think we can. So I think it'd be such an expensive mistake. We'd be asking him to lead the line from the very start, and that will be a gamble, which I don't think we can take that gamble. Isaac, he's a striker that I would love to get. That's pie in the sky. That's like fantasy. That's the deal I would love to do. I think maybe in the olden days, maybe 4 to 5 seasons ago, probably even 6 or 7, I would love to think that we could have gone and got him. I think Isaac is definitely the one. If Liverpool get him, then I think I think the league is there or thereabouts for them this year. So striker wise, Danny B says Xerxes is a similar profile. I think he surprises people this season. It's a very interesting take on Xerxes. I think he had a really good finish. I think he had a good end to the season last year. There's something about him that I like. So when he came to the club last season, and people were kind of on his back, and this kid had been here. I say kid. This young guy had been here probably all of 7-8 weeks, and people were sort of calling for his head. And the whole time, I was just like, we need to give this kid time. He's a kid. He's been here a couple of weeks. How can you judge a player? And he showed glimpses, and he showed things. And then obviously the fans got on his back, and I think he did want to leave. But then towards the end, I think what I liked about him, and when my mindset, not changing him, but where I thought like this could really, really work, I think he had a opportunity to leave, and he said, "Nah, I'm gonna stay here, and I'm gonna fight for my place." And you really saw February, March, and April, whereby that's what he did, and I was very, very impressed by what he did. So I would love him to carry on that form, and I think if he does stay, I'll be really interested to see where he plays. This is a player that I think doesn't deserve another season necessarily, but if we could, and again, your opinion could be that, if we can break even on this player, then fantastic. But Xerxes is one of those players that he could do something special next season, and I personally like him. I personally hope he does really well. He's got something about him. Whether he's a striker, he may be utilized as a kind of forward player, as that kind of, he can be that kind of number 10. So kind of like an all-round, like a he's a, I think he might be an Amarin sort of player where he can play anywhere. Well, he can play in that kind of number 9, that 10 role. So I think he may be kept for the fact that he can play in either of those two roles. Hi, Bobby. We are. Ollie Watkins should sign for £50 million deal for Newcastle. I hope he does. Ollie Watkins, I think, is an interesting one as well. I think if we can get his price down to 40 million-ish, depending on who's left, and I ultimately think the striker market's going to come down to who's left. I did this show this morning, was the Rashford show, as it is always, and the developments on that. And I think a lot depends on what we can do with these players. So Amarin apparently has banished these players. So the likes of those sorts of players have been told now to stay away. So all those players that have been told that they're surplus to requirements, Rashford's, the Garnachos, I think Anthony's, whoever else needs to go as well, the Malasias, they've all been told to stay away. They actually now come into training, I think, around 5 o'clock, 5:30. And they train now on their own. They train away from the first team. So the segregation from the first team is now there. How that transpires, if we can get rid of those players, then I think there is still time. And I want to be positive. I do, as much as the Glazers and Ineos and Sir Jim I'm still, my opinion on them, but they need to do something. So I'm hopeful. I'm still hopeful that we can do something. I still want to be positive that we can do something. And I am going to say, just before I go, that I am adamant that Burmo is going to come on Wednesday. He's going to get signed on Wednesday. He's going to hold up the purple shirt, and we're going to have something to celebrate after 6-7 weeks of utter awfulness. And I think hopefully then that can be the start of something else. So hopefully this is going to be the start of something positive. If Mbeumo gets announced today, I will obviously jump back on and we can go through that player. But just to sum up again, RIOS, apparently we are in talks for him. I think it's a really positive thing, and I really want that to be true. So RIOS, if we can get him in, I think that will be fantastic. I think that would just be I think that will make up slightly for some of the other deals that we haven't done. John Victor in goal, 5.9 million. I just want to say that again, 5.9. I think that's a deal that we shouldn't even be thinking about. I think that's a deal. If I had the money, I would just go and get him. You can pay me back, and I would just love to get that keeper. So that's the deal to do. And then striker. I think I don't know where we're gonna go. I think there's so many names being bandied around here, particularly in this chat, that I think that one of you will be right. Which one of you that is? Even if it's a case of Xerxes plays up front, Hoyland stays, Mateta, Watkins, Moise Keane. I still think there's something in that. But I think that it's interesting who we're going to sign. I just don't think it's going to be an interesting signing. I think it's going to be a who we get, but I just don't think it's going to be particularly good. I think that was a more positive show today. Suddenly be not sold on Victor. I watch Brazilian occasionally he makes mistakes. He parries his saves into the danger zone like Onana, but anyone is better than Onana. I like to see Vitek. Now, I've not mentioned Vitek. Again, I think he's a really good goalkeeper. Of course, I would prefer him over John, but I wouldn't be true to myself if I didn't think that, and I didn't stand by. I think that Ineos are going to do things on the cheap, and Victor, I think for 5.9, I think you almost can't go wrong with that. Vitek for me, I think if we could do that deal, hands down, I would absolutely do that deal. But I just have this feeling that we are going to do things on the cheap. Everyone else is shopping in. Vitek had an excellent loan in Austria, excellent on crosses. Yep. Yeah. Again, I think the 5.9 that you could pay for Victor, you lump that onto the Vitek deal. I mean, I don't know how much would that be? Around 25 million, maybe. I don't know how much he would go for. Let's have a little look, actually. See who can get there first. Vitek. See if we can grab that Vitek fee. If you can beat me in the chat. Vitek fee. Vitek fee. No, John Victor. 6'5". I can't actually find it. Vitek contract runs out. Either sell him or give him a new deal. So that means then Vitek, and that's good. If his contract runs out in 2 years, that's an interesting one. So I'd be quite. That's not maybe that's one to watch out for then. But I think that I really want you guys to be right. Really, really want you guys to be spot on with that. I have this sneaky suspicion that Onana's injury is not going to be as bad as we think it is, and we're just going to make do. I'm nearly sure it's 2027. I think we're going to make do for this season. I think that Onana's injury is not necessarily going to be as bad as we think it is. And again, I mean this in the nicest possible way, for an opportunity. I don't want him to be out for long term. I just want him to be out for long enough, so we need to sign a keeper. There's an opportunity here. There's an opportunity to force Onana out, and I hope you guys are right. John Victor, it just has that. It just has that Ineos cheapness all through it. But if Vitek if we can get that deal done for cheap, then I really hope that there's something that we can achieve. So let's see what the day brings. Let's see what other news comes out. I suspect it's going to be quiet. I suspect we're just going to be left quietness for the next couple of days, and then they're going to hit us with the Imbermo deal on Wednesday. Shirt up in LA on an NFL pitch with the purple shirt. Let's hope, eh? Thank you guys for watching again. I really, really do appreciate it. The chat, as always, I love your opinions. I absolutely love how I bring stuff into the show and you educate me as well. I think you guys are fantastic. I think your knowledge of football is brilliant. That's Danny B, Bobby, Adieri, whoever else, in case I've missed anybody in the chat. Honestly, you guys are fantastic. If anything does does drop, feel free to comment, make comments after the event, and then if anything does drop, I will try and get on it, and I'm going to try and be positive because I think we need some of that. Fingers crossed. So have a good rest of your day. If Mbema drops, I'll jump on. If anything else drops, I'll jump on. But if not, guys, thank you so much for watching. It's amazing. Oh, we're nearly at 3,000 subscribers as well, which is unbelievable, really. It's just, I can't even tell you what that means to me. I love this club. I love talking to you guys. I love talking about this stuff. And, it's just an amazing thing. So I will see you guys very soon. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care, all.